can't run off all that stuff. I don't have a computer. But the Lord has really been telling me that I need to share how amazing He has blessed me and all the opportunities that He's given me to serve Him. So I just told her, I said, well, I can give my testimony. And she said, that's great, that'll be fine. So, and now, after 82 years, I've got lots to tell. And now I've been trying to put it in a nutshell and just, highlight the real amazing blessings that He's given me, because He's given me so many. And so anyway, here it goes. Yesterday I went to see Gail Gammon, and she's been distressed that she couldn't be here. So I had told her, don't worry, I'll give it to you anytime you want me to. Well, I decided I'd practice on her. So I let her get up in the bed, and I said, okay, I'm going to practice. And so it ended up being 35 minutes, and I don't know if it's going to be 35 minutes today, but I'm going to try to definitely keep it. But anyway, starting off, I had a great Christian home growing up. My daddy was a deacon at the church, and he thought if you weren't a Baptist that you were really missing out. He just loved the church, and he always said, if you're good to God, He'll be good to you. So he had all these cow sales, and always the sun shined, except a few times when everybody got in the barn, it started raining. But they had already looked at the cows, decided what they were going to buy, so they were all, and so truly, He did bless him with good daddies, and he really believed if you were good to God, He was going to be good to you. So anyway, but my mother was a Methodist. They had dated 10 years when they got married, and Mother was teaching Sunday school, and they asked her to please quit, because she was teaching Methodist doctrine at the Baptist church. So she was always kind of in the background. Of course, she moved here, and Daddy was a big Baptist, so she joined with him. But she loved to tell me that. They told me I couldn't teach anymore. But anyway, I grew up going to church, to everything, and went to GAs and Sunday school and everything, and loved it. And so when I got ready to graduate from high school, my mother wanted me to go to a girls' school up east because I was valedictorian, and she thought I was really smart and I could do that. But my daddy said, nope, my children are going to school in Mississippi, because I'm not traveling all over the country to see my grandchildren. And y'all, there's a lot of wisdom in that. We all went to school in Mississippi. Rosemary and Lucille married boys from Senatobia. I was the only one that went out of the city, but I didn't go out of Mississippi. And so there's a lot of wisdom. And we did the same thing with our children. They always went to college in Mississippi, and they all are right around us. So really, I thought that was really a bit of wisdom that he had, because I have friends whose children went to California and Texas, and that's where they live, California and Texas. So, okay, but he wanted me to go to Blue Mountain, which was a Baptist girls' school, because he was friends of Dr. Lowry that was head of the school. Well, I was dubious about it, but I went to visit. And y'all, they were so silly. They were standing up in the hall giggling and carrying on, and I got back home and I said, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good fit for me. So Mother and I kind of got together, and we said, well, maybe he'll let you go to MSCW, since that's a girls' school. So he said, okay. So, I forgot to tell you this too. When I was growing up, I was the oldest of 3 girls. We were all born in 4 years, so we were all close in age. And being the oldest, I think I tried to make up to him for not having a boy. So I was the one that showed cows, and I was the one that went quail hunting with him. And one year, I told him I wasn't going to go if he didn't let me shoot. He gave me a gun for Christmas, and the other girls got pretty dresses, and I got a gun. That was probably the saddest Christmas I ever had. But anyway, and also I told Pat Moore, I saw her downstairs, her daddy, Floyd Hubbard, worked for Daddy, and he was the one that, he would check the cows. He would ride his horse and check the cows behind the ranch. And I would go on Saturday and ride with him to check the cows. So I was kind of a daddy's girl, to tell you the truth. And he knew that I kind of loved what he loved. I loved the cows and I loved the land and Mississippi and all that. But anyway, I didn't go to Blue Mountain, but I went to MECW because he had cow friends in Columbus, the Gatchells, so that really made it even nicer. He knew somebody down there. If I needed something, I could get them. So, and at that time, Mississippi State did not have any girls much. They were just agriculture girls, just maybe 10. So I told Daddy, I'm gonna look for us a cowboy, come back and help on the ranch. So that made him happy. I said, I'm looking for a cowboy. Well, I spent 2 years at the W, and I spent a lot of time at Mississippi State, but I did not find a cowboy. So I decided I wanted to go to a co-ed school after I was at the W, so he agreed that I could go to Ole Miss. So, well, I didn't know if I could be a rebel because I'd been a bulldog for 2 years, but it didn't take long. I was a rebel, so now I just love them both, So we have, the men in my family went to Mississippi State and the girls went to Ole Miss, so we kind of like them both. Okay, so when I transferred to Ole Miss, I met with the counselor, and I had a teacher at MSCW, Mr. Grossnickel. He was the math teacher, and I had taken algebra and trig under him. He said, Miss Moore, you must major in math because you definitely are good at it. You just must. So when I went to the Ole Miss, I thought, well, I'm going to major in math. He told me I should. Well, when I talked to the counselor, she looked at my transcript and she said, well, I'm sorry, but you can't major in math. You don't have enough hours. You just have 6 hours, and, that's not enough. But she said, I see you have 12 hours of Spanish, and you just would need 12 more hours of that. So you can major in that. Hallelujah, y'all. That was definitely a blessing because I had to minor in math. I took 13 hours of analytical geometry and calculus when I got there. There was one other girl in the class. They were all the others were engineers, and we had to pool our knowledge before every class. We would study together, but we ended up doing okay. It was actually Susan Johnson's first husband was in the class. And he was real smart, and he would go to the library with us the night before the test and kind of help us. We did good. We made it, but it was terrible. And I thought, what if I had majored in math? I would have been miserable. So anyway, it was wonderful that I majored in Spanish. But my 2 years at the W and 1 year at Ole Miss, my teachers never said a word of Spanish. My year at Ole Miss, Dr. Halstead was my professor, and he sat up on the desk smoking cigarettes, and we translated from Spanish into English. He never said hola, adios, anything. So anyway, after my junior year in college, Ole Miss had a program where you could go study in a foreign country and live in a home and get credit for it. I don't think you had to do anything to get the credit, just go. But anyway, so I went to Madrid, Spain, and went to the University of Madrid, lived with a Marquesa, who the Marquis had fallen in love with somebody else and gone to the country with her. And the way she made her living was to rent rooms. And so there were 5 boarders, 4 students, and a woman that had an American Spanish Institute. She taught Spaniards to speak English. So anyway, the Marquesa spoke no English, and I spoke no Spanish. We had to eat 3 meals a day around her table, and she would get insulted if you were not there, for every meal. So I learned to speak Spanish, and being a major, I really concentrated on it. I had this one guy, he was a Spaniard that helped her with her institute. He would tell me, now you have to chop off those words at the end, those vowels, because I'd say bueno, and it's supposed to be bueno, because I'm from the South, and we always, linger at the end. But anyway, It was a wonderful experience. But we did get hungry for a hamburger and a milkshake. We found out that there was a Balboa hotel that we could walk to because there was a Navy base outside of Madrid, and the soldiers would come in and they'd get hamburgers and milkshakes. So, honey, we would eat breakfast in the morning. We'd get on a metro and a trolley and go to the University of Madrid, and all the classes were in Spanish. So, I mean, I had a hard time understanding what they were saying. But then we'd have lunch at 2, and everybody'd take a nap. Well, as soon as we got through with the nap, honey, we headed to the Balboa Hotel. And we'd get us a hamburger and a milkshake. We didn't do it every day, but, you know, we had to eat with her too. So we went and got one in between, and then we had supper like at 8 o'clock at night. So anyway, that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I did, so my senior year, my teacher spoke in Spanish. So I was so excited that I could at least, understand a little bit. Okay, let me go on. Okay, so my mother told me that she didn't care what I majored in, but I was going to get a teacher's license. She was a teacher, and she said, I thought she was kind of smart too, because she said, if you're a teacher and something happens to your husband, then you can be with your children. And so, anyway, that was it. I was going, back then, there wasn't much you could be except a nurse or a teacher or a secretary. Yeah. But anyway, so I majored in Spanish, minored in math and English, but I took the classes to get a teacher's license. So my senior year at Ole Miss, I went to Meridian with 3 friends to practice teach. And I just loved the lady I taught under. She was about this tall. Her name was Louise Simpson, and she was precious, and she made it so much fun. She just made them really enjoy it. Of course, my husband took under and he made a D, so I don't know. But anyway, she was just precious, and I loved it. But anyway, this guy from the TV station, Tony Sansone, y'all, he came and picked up all the practice teachers from Ole Miss and MSCW in his Volkswagen. Can you imagine how long it took him to pick us all up? How many people can you get in a Volkswagen? But anyway, he picked us all up. He had a cabin down behind in a residential section where he lived. He invited all the bachelors from Meridian to come. And so that night, Walter asked if he could carry me home. Walter, my husband. So anyway, he carried me home. We dated a few times, and then I just loved this teacher, so I decided I wanted to go. I didn't love him, but I loved the teacher. So I decided I wanted to go back and teach with her. And so I called a friend from MSCW and asked her if she wanted to come teach there, and she did. So we ended up teaching that next year. And Walter had won the state championship, Little League championship 2 years. He started coaching, I guess, when he was in college, right out of high school. But anyway, some of the students I taught, he had taught in Little League. And they thought that Coach McKellar was something else, and they thought since I was dating him that I was a queen. They just thought I was really something. So anyway, but he didn't profess his love to me, nothing. We just dated, and we went to a lot of Little League games where he was the coach. And so that spring, I had a friend that was teaching in Dallas, and she wanted us to come out and visit her. So we went about 3 or 4 of us went out to visit her, and we said, well, since we're out here, let's just interview, because if we like it, we might want to go out here and teach. So we all went to interview, y'all. The guy called our principals. He hired us on the spot. Of course, we didn't know if we wanted to go or not. But anyway, we ended up going. 2 friends and I went, and we roomed together. And when I got out there, they told me that I was going to teach English. Well, I told them I was sorry, but I was going back home if I couldn't speak Spanish. So they let me speak some Spanish, and there were a lot of Mexicans out there too. So, but anyway, I taught out there. Walter came to see me a couple of times. I came home, and he asked me to marry him at Christmas. Well, no, he asked me to marry him that summer. But I had this other guy that wanted to marry me too. But I kept telling him, oh, I'm not ready, let's wait a while. But I ended up telling him I would, which was a big mistake, because when I rode back into Meridian, I thought, I don't think I can marry him, because I really liked Walter. But anyway, that's another whole story. But anyway, he asked me, I remember it as well as anything. I was sitting out on the fence in front of the lodge, and he asked me to marry him, and I said yes. You know, I mean, I knew immediately that he was the one. So anyway, guess what? That cowboy I had always dreamed about, I got him. He was an accountant. He graduated from Mississippi State in accounting, and when I met him, he was working at an accounting firm in Meridian. But when we decided to get married, my daddy gave him glowing reports about how wonderful it would be to come work for him. That he would not pay us much because he didn't want us to have to pay many taxes. But he would give us a little bonus at the end of the year, which he did a few times, not every time. But anyway, here we go. And Walter doesn't know anything about cows or anything, but he did have a grandfather that had a farm. I think it was 25 acres in Meridian, and he raised like 10 kids on it. So, but anyway, he did love to be outside coaching and doing stuff. So anyway, Daddy wanted him to sit in the office and learn the cow business. Well, that doesn't work, you know. So he shoveled manure, he baled hay, he did everything, you know. And Daddy thought the cows had to be fed at 5 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon, which meant he got up at 4 o'clock to go feed the cows. He'd come back for lunch and he stayed out till dark. So he worked. Have y'all heard I told this to somebody and they never heard of it. If you put a penny in a jar every time you make love your first year you're married, you'll never get them out if you take one out every time that you have love after that. Well, it did not work with us because Walter was exhausted. He was truly exhausted. So that definitely did not apply to us. But after a year and a half, we had our first child, which was a boy. And oh my gosh, Daddy was elated. He called every cow friend he had in the United States and told them that he had a grandson. So anyway, that was a biggie, you know, having. And I remember when I had him, they asked me if I wanted to see him, and I couldn't believe we had a boy. I just said no, I don't think I want to see him. And so I mean, I thought they were joking, you know. But anyway, we had Walt, which now he is carrying on Daddy's legacy, you know. Walter did it, now Walt's doing it. He's running the farm, raising Herefords like, you know, Daddy loved, and so anyway. But anyway, so then 2 years later, here comes Ann Louise, which she is wonderful. And so everything was going along okay, and then I always wanted to have 3 real close, because Rosemary and Lucille and I were close. I had just turned 4 when Lucille was born, so we grew up triple dating and swapping boyfriends and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, after I'd had 2, I thought, I think I'll have to slow down now. But in about 3 years, I really thought we should have another one, because there were 3 in Walter's family and 3 in my family. And he didn't want to, because he said, you know, your daddy could fire us anytime. And he did fire us once, and we didn't know. I mean, he fired him several times, but one time he came after church, and right after Sunday after lunch, and fired Walter. And we did not know what in the world he had fired him for. We couldn't figure out what he had done. Well, guess what? Mr. Payne ushered with Daddy at church, and somebody had told Mr. Payne that Walter had carried Walt to the Presbyterian church. So he fired us because he didn't like it. He didn't want his grandson going to the Presbyterian church. I guess I had a baby and was at home or something. So he grew up a Presbyterian, and he's always loved the Presbyterian church. But anyway, Daddy fired us for that. So you can imagine, he didn't know when he would fire us again. So Walter says, no. Well, finally I twisted on him. He said, okay, you can get off the pill and we'll see. And so I did. 3 weeks later, he told me, he said, you know, I'm rethinking this. I do not think we should have any more. guess what? Rosie was wonderfully made. I never had a period. With the other two, it took me 3 or 4 months to get pregnant, so she was meant to be. But the others always tell her they didn't want you. They couldn't do anything about it. But anyway, we had a great time. Walter, it was hard because, you know, young people and old people don't see eye to eye. And Walter had his idea about how things should be, and Daddy had his. He always said first things first, you know. So but anyway, my mother told me, she said, I knew you wanted to marry somebody just like your daddy. And he's just as hard-headed and stubborn as your dad is. And I think that's the reason I fell in love with him, because everybody I dated always, if I said black was white, they'd say, well, it sure is. Yeah, but he was the one, if I said black was white, he'd say, you're crazy, it is not. So I knew that he had a mind, you know, I didn't want to marry a namby-pamby. I knew he had a mind of his own, and I knew it would take that. You know, that's what I wanted, because that's the way Daddy was. He was definitely a dominating person in my life. So anyway, so I told Mom, I said, well, yeah, I know, I did want to marry somebody like my daddy, and I did get somebody. But anyway, okay, I got to get on track here. I knew I would get carried away and tell more than I was supposed to tell. Okay, and then too, I didn't even say anything about my grandchildren. I have 8 wonderful grandchildren, 6 boys and 2 girls. So far, they're all okay, you know, and they've been a real, you know, pleasure to us. But anyway, what else was I going to tell you? What else? Let's see, I don't want to lose that. Oh, but I hadn't told you the opportunities that he's given me to serve him. But when Walt was 1 1/2, I decided, that verse came back to me, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. So I decided when he was 1 1/2, I said, I'm going to start teaching Sunday school so that I know we'll be in church every Sunday. Well, he kicked the teacher. He did. Miss Murphy was like 80 when she was his teacher, and every Sunday I would take him and he would kick her and carry on. And she'd say, now go on, that's okay, he'll be okay. Well, after a while, he realized I wasn't coming back, so he got a lot better. But I taught in the 7th and 8th grade, and Buck, my cousin, Buck Moore, was kind of with me. He was like kind of the superintendent, and I was the teacher. But anyway, so I taught in the 7th and 8th grade, and then the high school got too big. They were all together, and they wanted to break them up to 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th. So Buck and I went up to the 9th and 10th. And so I taught Sunday school youth for 50 years, a little over 50 years. But God always gave me a love for teenagers. I always thought they were precious. And Walter would tell me they weren't. They were doing terrible things. And I said, well, I don't care. They're precious to God and they're precious to me, and I'm not going to think about it. But anyway, I love teaching them. I just love teaching them. So that was one way I got to serve him. And then also, when my children were growing up, I didn't work, so I went to Bible Study Fellowship, which is an interdenominational Bible study in South Haven and then Memphis. And I felt like since I was teaching, I needed to, you know, be taught. And through that kind of Bible study, I really had to study, and I really got to love God's Word. And then when that was over, the same kind of Bible study is for small towns as Explorers, and it started in Como, so I started doing that. And then also the WMU was having trouble getting any young people, and Corinne Owen had a meeting at her house and got some of us to come, and we formed the Flower Circle, and it's still going, and Sylvia is the leader in that. So I think Patsy Sledge told me coming, I saw it that day, she said, are you going to be the leader when Sylvia goes? I said, no. I said, she hadn't asked me to be the leader. I am not going to be the leader. But Catherine Warren, y'all, was the leader in WMU until she died. And then Susan Jones became the leader until she died. And now I'm the leader. And I asked Sylvia, I said, Sylvia, I've got to find somebody to take my place. She said, no, you got it till you die. So I guess I've got it till I died. So anyway, so I have to tell you this. After the children had gotten on, I always dreamed that I could go back and teach Spanish. My mouth is really getting dry. So, Dr. Lishman started working on me, I think when Rosie was about in the 9th grade, to come teach at Magnolia Heights. He couldn't find, I guess, what he thought was a good foreign language teacher. But he only wanted me to teach 3 classes, 2 first and 1 second. Well, y'all, I hadn't taught in 20 years. I had forgotten a lot. But he wanted me to teach the Becca course, y'all, that is the Christian course. Well, that first year, I would view the video for that day, and then I'd go to school and teach them. Then I'd review the second day. So, but anyway, y'all, the blessing was that I got to teach a Christian course for 17 years to those kids, and we learned a Bible verse every week, and the kids got up and recited it on Friday for a grade. And Walter said I was a SOP teacher, because he looked at my grade book and he said, I saw all these 95s and 100s and 95s. Well, I tried to give them a chance to really, whether they were real smart or not, a chance to really feel good, you know. But anyway, this is my favorite verse, and it's the first verse I taught when I started back. Yo soy el camino y la verdad y la vida. Nadie viene al Padre sino por mí. Do you remember that? Sage? Okay, Juan 14 says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. And that has been my favorite verse since I started teaching again. And every Friday they'd stand up and say a verse in Spanish. And I remember Levi Lance, you know, is a missionary to India, and somebody asked him, said, well, how did you get started on kind of wanting to be a missionary? And he said, well, I used to learn a Bible verse in Spanish every week in Spanish. So, I mean, it was a chance for me to show them my faith and for them to really learn everything. That's when I started singing the Christian songs. They were part of it, you know. And then I started singing the Christian songs with my Sunday school. And now if I see one I hadn't seen in 40 years, they'll say, Senor McKellar, we remember those songs that we sang in Spanish. And of course, they'd always want to sing because they didn't want the lesson. So they say, can we sing today? You know, when I go in, and I'd say, well, we don't have the lesson, then we'll sing. But they love singing because it kept them from having the lesson. But anyway, that was such a blessing, y'all, to not only be able to go back and teach, but to be able to teach a Christian course. You know, that was really one of the amazing blessings. Okay, well, I want y'all to know that life has not been a bowl of cherries. Everybody has bumps, and I've had plenty of bumps. But I'll just tell you a few of them. But, you know, I feel like when he gives us difficulties, he wants us to be able to help those that have the same situation. And then I do have one thing that happened, and I'm going to tell you that's something. Oh, I also, Romans 8:28 is one of my favorite verses. For those, wait a minute, everything works together for good for those that love God and are called according to his purpose. Well, I want to tell you another amazing thing that happened. Walter got burned 35% of his body when Ann Louise had just graduated from college. He was going to get my mother a leg of lamb, and he turned left on 51 down at Stan Hawkins, and somebody came over the hill and hit him. He had one of those trucks with the gas tank on the side, and hit and it blew up. So anyway, he was in the burn unit at the med for like 17 days, and it was really tough on all of us. It took him like a year to recover, but he came out, he's whole now. I mean, he's able to do everything, but Ann Louise, that had just graduated from college, she had wanted to be a pharmacist, and she got on the waiting list. They told her she could take something over again, but she didn't want to. Then she applied for physical therapy. She always wanted to do something medical. She got an interview the first year, her junior year. The last year, she didn't even get an interview. And I had tried to talk her into being a nurse, because I told her, I said, I just think if you want to do something medical, be a nurse. You know, I didn't go in at all. But anyway, after Walter got burned, we spent, you know, every day up there. You know, they let us go in. Oh, he was horrible looking. His head was this big, but Anyway, she started talking to those nurses up there, and she decided she thought she could be a nurse. And she found a program that at UT, they had just started it. I think it was the second year, that if you graduated from college with a 3-point, you could get your BSN in 11 months. She applied and she got in, and in 11 months she was a nurse. So, I mean, that was amazing to me that came out of that horrible thing that we had to go through. But also, Walter and I both survived cancer. I had breast cancer, he had prostate cancer. He had a cordoma on his tailbone, which only 1 in a million have. And they didn't know much about it in Memphis, so Ann Louise carried him to MD Anderson 3 times. They only spent 1 night 2 times, and when they could have done surgery, which was a long, terrible thing, so we didn't want to do that. But they radiated it from all areas. He had to go out and get, prepare for how they would do it and all. And then they went back, they flew out in the morning, he got radiated at 2 and flew home that afternoon. And he's never had any trouble with it since. But the blessing about it was that it didn't travel to his organs. He couldn't sit, he had trouble sitting, but once, and we just sent an MRI out there, and they said actually it had shrunk a little. They told us it would contain it, and it might even cause some scar tissue, and but anyway, he's had other problems, but that has not been a problem anymore. We've had 2 divorces. My oldest daughter, Ann Louise, married her high school boyfriend. After they went together 8 years, they had a wonderful wedding. After about 4 months, he decided he didn't want to be married. So anyway, God gave her a wonderful husband. So that was such a blessing. And then Rosie, my youngest one, she was married 20 years, and she is divorced. And I'm praying for a wonderful man for her, but she hadn't found one yet. She says she's just looking for a normal one. But anyway, y'all, everybody that's going through a divorce or separated, they want to be with her. They want to come and see her, or they wanted to meet her. And I said, Rosie, that's your ministry, honey. You've been through it. It was hard, but now you can help the others who are going through it, So I feel like I told her, I said, that's your ministry. Just help, do what you can to help them, because it's a terrible time. But anyway, okay, so I've told you about the bumps. And my mother said when I got married, y'all, that marriage wasn't a bed of roses. And I think people should tell young people that now. I think they go into marriage thinking everything's just going to be peachy. And it's not. And life is no bed of roses either. Everybody's going to have those bumps and those difficulties, and just how you react to them is what is important. Okay, so I think that's pretty well it. I'm doing pretty good. I had lunch with a friend Friday, and she told me I told her I was going to give my testimony. And she said, well, I want you to tell them my favorite poem. I said, okay, I will. So this is her favorite poem. It's Jane Badua. We started the Bible study fellowship together, and then they moved, but we've always, visited back and forth and everything. She's still one of my really good friends. Okay, the name of the poem is, one other thing I was going to tell you before I read this, because this is it. One summer I went to a Bible study, and Brenda was the leader. And I just thought she was a wonderful teacher, Bible teacher. So I made up my mind then, or not then, but later, when I thought I might be ending my teaching at the youth. I would see y'all meeting and everything, and I said, I swear I'm going. When I retire from you, I'm going to Brenda's class. And so here I am. And so I just love it. I love it. Okay, this is a poem, and it's the name of it. It shows in your face. You don't have to tell how you live each day. You don't have to say if you work or play. A tried true barometer serves in the place. However you live, it shows in your face. If your life is selfless, if for others you live, for not what you get, but how much you can give, if you live close to God in His infinite peace, you don't have to tell it. It shows on your face.
Thank you.